All right, hello everybody. I think we are good to go now. I'm going to just start a new sketch in Code Naturally, so make sure that everybody has Code Naturally open, has a new sketch started. We're going to make a game called Apple Catcher today, which I'm sure that a few of you have already made before. It's pretty easy, and the reason that I'm doing this game that's like a little bit easy, but still using a lot of the same concepts that we've used before, is because we are going to learn about some basics of game design, and we're going to talk about how to use true and false to make different levels in your game. So we're going to start with a pretty easy game to just make it a little bit easier to explain some of those and apply some of those things that we're going to discuss today. So just get set up, get ready to go. All right. So once you guys are ready to go, you have a new sketch open, just let us know in the comments and we will start out. Like I said, this is a little bit of an easier game, so this part will be pretty fast for us. Hopefully everybody's having a good spring break. Thank you guys for still coming into the class, even though it's your spring break. It means a lot to us. We're glad that you're here. While you're here, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and you subscribe to our channel. That would be really useful. Alright, so like I said, let me know when you guys are ready to go and I will start. Alright, seems like you guys are ready. So for Apple Catcher, one of the first things that we want to do is go into our function setup and put in the line rect, capital M mode, and then in parentheses, all caps, center. And the reason that we do rect mode center is because in this game we use distance. And when you're doing distance with rectangles, you really want to make sure that you are able to calculate the distance from the inside of the rectangle instead of doing the top left corner. And the reason that we do that is because the top left corner is obviously not the same distance from all the other corners. It's not the same distance from the center necessarily. So when we do it from the center, we can calculate the distance all around it, which makes it way easier. Okay, so we have rect mode center put in there into our function setup, and then we're going to start making some variables. So I'm going to go up to line 9, make some extra space, and I'm going to make a first variable that's called basket x, and we're going to make that one equal 400. Oops. Then we're going to make a variable called score, and we want that to start at 0. Then we want to, I guess we'll start with the design. So we want to start by making a basket and an apple. And one of the reasons that I really like doing this game is because you can so easily change it. It doesn't have to be an apple falling into a basket. It could easily be a car and you're trying to like catch it in a garage or something, or you could make it go the other way on the screen and make it so that you have to like catch a really fast running person or a really fast car maybe. It's a really easy game to change, and I've even seen it changed into like a taco catcher game. That was super cool, where some of the ones that you would catch are positive, some are negative. There are good things you want to look for and bad things to look out for. So there's a lot of fun ways that I've seen this changed and made into a new, different game. So, that being said, we're going to add in a background. Let's pick a color. Let's do blue. All right, I'm going to put that background in there. I'm going to make a basket. Oh, shouldn't type basket. I'm going to type rect. And then basket X is going to be my X variable. And I want to put that at, let's say like 350 for the Y. I always make my screen a little bit smaller. I just think it looks a little bit better. And then we are going to do a size of 50/50. And then let's put a fill in for that. Let's do, I can do like a brown color since it's a basket. And let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow. And then we're going to put in a fill command for our apple. And I'm just going to do this as the basic design of Apple Catcher, but like I said, feel free to change it. You can keep going with the same project that I'm doing, and then you can change it later on if you want to. Okay, so I put in the fill command, and now we are going to put in an ellipse. And I'm going to wait on the apple for just a second because we're going to make some variables for it. So we have a variable for our basket. Oh, hold on one second, you guys. Okay, so someone said to go a little bit slower, which is totally fine. So I'm going to slow down just a little bit. And let's see. So we have at this point you should have rect mode center in setup, function setup. You should have two variables, one for basket X and one for score. You should have your background. You should have a basket that you filled in. Like I said, it could be any color, it could be anything. And then you want to have a fill command and have your ellipse ready to go. But we're going to go up and we're going to make some more variables. So I'm going to make another variable for apple X. And I'm going to set that equal to random and then a set of parentheses that goes from 0 to 600. This means that every time that the apple is created, it'll be at a different random point. It's going to be some random spot between 0 and 600. So that's going to be my apple's X location. And then for its Y location, I want my apple to start in a spot that it's not actually visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this -50, and that'll make it so that it starts somewhere up here. So that's what I want for my apple. We want to make one more that's called apple speed, and we're going to make that one equal 3. Okay. So I think so far so good. And so now we can go back to where we were making our ellipse, and we want to make it at apple X, comma, apple Y, oops. And just make sure if you used capitals in your variables, make sure you use the capitals later on as well. So you have ellipse and then in parentheses apple capital X and then comma apple capital Y. And I just want to give it a size. Alright, and nothing's going to show up on the canvas yet, and the reason why is because 1, we haven't told it to move yet, so it's not moving from where it is, and 2, the apple's Y location is a negative spot, so if I change that to +50 instead of -50, it would show up. So just keep in mind that because it's at -50, you're not going to be able to see it, so don't worry about that. I'm just going to add in a stroke command. You guys don't have to do this. I'm just filling some extra time so that everybody has time to catch up. Okay. There's one more thing that we want to do. So we want to be able to move our basket using our mouse. So one thing that we could have done from the very beginning is just change this basket X to mouse X. But just for the purposes of today, we're just going to go down and we're going to say basket X equals mouse capital X. So another way you could have done this is you could have just completely not used the variable for basket X and just had it so that the rect that makes the basket is at mouse capital X, comma 350, comma 50, comma 50. So you guys can try it either way. Doesn't really matter. Oops. Sorry, I'm trying to fix this so I can see the full chat. There we go. It always takes a minute to get the whole setup ready to go, right? Okay, so we have our variables, got a rect mode center. We are doing pretty good, and now because we had basket X equals mouse capital X, make sure you have that capital X. It's really, really important. If you did it with a lowercase, it won't work. The mouse X is basically just a built-in variable that the computer already knows. So if you spell it wrong, it's not going to notice it, just like if you spelled one of your own variables wrong. So let's keep going. All right, so we are really going through this game pretty fast. Like I said, it's a pretty easy one, and the reason why we did this is so that we can add a lot of cool stuff to it at the end to make it into a little bit of a harder game or a little bit of a maybe more fun game if you play it a lot and you realize, this isn't really challenging for me anymore. So the next thing that we're going to do is make it so that our apple actually falls on the canvas. So we're going to say apple y equals apple y plus apple speed. So now our apples are actually falling, but two things that you'll notice are that one, you can't catch the apples yet, and another thing is that it falls once and then never comes back. So we're going to fix both of those things next. Really quick, while you guys are all catching up, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about game design. It's one of the things we're going to talk about today. So when you're designing a game, you really want to think about, do I have a character or do I have maybe an object that I'm controlling? Like in this case, I have the basket that I'm controlling. You want to think about, is there a bad consequence to your game? Is there like an enemy that you're trying to avoid? Is there maybe like a trap door? Is there, in this case, like, can the apple fall? And then maybe you could make it so that when the apple falls, you lose a point. So is there something like that you can lose your score or lose the game by? You also want to think about the good parts. So is there some way for you to gain points? Is there some way for you to gain health? Is there some way to maybe go from one level to the next level? So these are some things we're going to talk about today. But when you're designing a game, the first two things you really want to think about are, what does the background look like? What is the landscape that I'm dealing with? Then you want to think about your character. And you want to think about, okay, what does my character look like? What do they do? How do they move? What's the enemy? How does the enemy move? You know, is there a score? Is there a timer? You want to start thinking about those kind of things in that order. And I'll make a full video about how to design your own video game. But in the meantime, you guys can check out our YouTube channel. It has a ton of different projects for you guys to check out and try. There's some really advanced ones and there's some more beginner ones. And if you've been in this class for a few weeks and you realize like, oh, the beginner class, or not the beginner, the advanced class is still pretty easy for me, we're actually going to have a master class tomorrow from 2:30 to 4 in, I just saw a question, but same YouTube channel, and it's going to be Charlie. I don't know if you guys have met him before, but he's awesome, and he's going to be talking about loops and conditionals and objects and functions and a lot of more complicated stuff. Let's see, Noah asked, is there a way to set a person's mouse to a certain point and not let it move using mouse X and mouse Y? I think that Yuval will answer this question for you. It's a little bit complicated for me to go over right now. But feel free to ask any questions. I think this is a much smaller class today because it is spring break for most of you right now. So I can probably talk about answer a lot of your questions, which is awesome. Okay, so now you should have your apple falling on the canvas, but it'll only go once. So let's fix that. So we want to say down here, no, it's fine. We want to say if our apple's y coordinate is greater than 400, then what we want to happen is we basically want everything to reset. So we want our apple X to reset to where it was. We want our apple Y to reset to where it was. And then if you wanted to make it so that if you dropped it, like if the apple fell, then you lose a point, then you could do something to the score. So we'll go back and modify that a little bit later, but this is where you would put it. Just keep that in mind. So the first thing we're going to do is say if apple Y is greater than 400, then what we want to happen is apple X is going to, again, equal random 0,800 inside of those parentheses. Then we also want apple Y to reset to -50. So it's falling, hits 400, goes back up, restarts. I'm actually going to make this 450 because I think 400 you can still see part of it, so I think it doesn't look quite as nice as I want it to. Alright, so there we go. We have an apple that's continuously falling. There's always one apple on the screen, and it just keeps resetting. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to get out of that conditional statement, but make sure that we're still in function draw inside of those curly brackets. And we are going to have our score now. We're going to have our score display first, and then we're going to tell the computer when to add the score. So we are going to say text, and then in parentheses. And if you want it to say something before it actually displays the score, like if you want it to say score, or if you want it to say points, or team 1, if you're doing like a 2-team, you would just put it in quotation marks like this. So you write score, however you want it to appear. Then, right after that, you want to put plus score. And then you want to give it its location. So I'm going to do 500, 50, see what that looks like. There we go. So it's pretty small, but if you decide that you just want the score, you can just write score, no quotation marks. If you don't put anything in quotation marks, that's totally fine. And then you would just give it a location same way. So that's 2 different ways that you can make your score appear. I'm going to go with the first one for this lesson. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to do some modification to my text. So I'm going to do a text size. 100 is going to be too big, I think. Yeah. I'm going to do 60. That should be a little better. No? I really want you to be able to read it. Let's see, 30. Yeah, that's good. And then I'm going to move it to the left a little bit. I have a feeling that might happen. There we go. So now my score is displayed. Some other things you could do to modify the text. You could change the text font. You could change the color by doing fill. Yeah, I've gone over that stuff before. I'll just do it right now. I'll just change the text font. Make sure you do a capital F there, and then you put the font inside of quotation marks. I'm just going to use a web-based font that I know is available to me. So Impact is a good one. Courier is a good one. Let's do Courier. So I have my text font, I have my text size, and then let's just put in a fill. I'll just make it black. There we go. So at this point, you should have your apple falling, but you can't catch it yet. So let's make it so you can catch it by creating a new if statement down below that. We're going to say if, and then in a set of parentheses, dist, so D-I-S-T, another set of parentheses, and we're going to write apple x, apple y. So we're checking if the distance between one point and another point is less than or greater than a certain value. So in this point, we're doing apple x and apple y are 1 point. And then our basket x, and then whatever our basket's y is, minus 350. So if the distance between the center of the apple and the center of the basket is less than 50, then what we want to happen is we want everything to reset just like we did here. So I'm just going to copy and paste it, just the inside. We want apple x to reset to random and then in parentheses 0,800. And then we want apple y to set to -50. And there's one more thing that we want to happen here. We want our score to go up by 1, right? Because if you make it into the basket, you get a score. So we're going to say score equals score plus 1. All right, so now we should have a functioning game. All right. And you can see that I'm able to catch it when it's right on top of my basket. So you could change it so that instead of being is less than 50, it's less than 25 or something. In that case, I would recommend that you put the code for the rectangle after you do the code for the ellipse so that it actually looks like it's falling in, because otherwise it'll look like it falls on top of the basket, which is not what we want. So now we have a working game, and I'm going to show you how to take this simple game and change it into something that can be a little bit trickier, a little bit more fun, a little bit harder, whatever it is that you want. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make it so that if I do not catch the apple, I lose a point. So in that case, it would be if apple y is greater than 450, then the apple's x and the apple's y reset. So this whole bit right here, I'm going to add one line into that, and I'm going to say score equals score minus 1. So it takes whatever the score is and subtracts 1 from it. So let's see, I catch it, and then I'll let it fall on the next one, and I lost a point. So caught 2 of them, caught 3 of them, dropped 1 of them, my score is back to 2. So that's one really easy way to modify the game to make it a little bit different. Another thing that we can do is we can use score as kind of a condition. So we can say down below here, let's just say if our score is greater than or equal to, let's say 5, then we could say like apple speed equals apple speed plus 5 or something like that. In this case, it's just easy enough for us to say, all right, it's normally at 3, so let's set it to 6. Let's double it. So that means once I get my score up to 5, I'm going to have to deal with the game being harder to play. All right, so you guys can see it got faster, right? And it looks like it's kind of falling off the screen. You guys can't really see it, but that's okay. So now my apple is falling faster. So as soon as you get to that score of 5, then the apple speed is faster. So that's one way. Then you could modify it. You could also add another one right after that says like if score is greater than or equal to 10, then apple speed is 9, something like that. Or you can make it so that score and speed go up at the same rate. So basically wherever you did score equals score plus 1 or score equals score minus 1, you could do apple speed equals apple speed minus 1 or plus 1. So let's try that out and let's see how it goes. So right underneath here, I'm going to do apple speed equals apple speed plus 1. Okay, so I catch it and it's going faster, it's going faster, it's going faster. So this one would be actually really hard. It's already pretty hard to play, but that's one choice, and you can make it if you drop it, then the speed goes down. That's one thing that's not happening right now, so it's kind of difficult. So I'm going to say apple speed equals apple speed minus 1. So it takes whatever the apple's speed is and subtracts 1 from it. So let's see, if I let a couple of them fall, then they're going to be falling really slowly, which I guess at some point it would just stop. You could just do speed equals score, but in that case, you couldn't actually do speed equals score because your score starts at 0, and so your speed would start at 0, and so it wouldn't fall. But if you started the score at 1, you could do that. That would be a good idea. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can modify games like this to make them more fun. One way, I'm going to slow down a little bit. So the next thing that I'm going to talk to you guys about is something that we've talked about before. I'm going to just talk to you about how to add in a game screen to your game. And adding in the game screens is going to allow us to add some levels in there, which are going to be pretty cool. So as of right now, everyone should have a working game where you either have, I'm just going to take out this extra fancy stuff. All right. So I was asked to slow down a little bit. So these are just some examples. You guys don't have to change it in the way that I changed it. You don't have to make it so that the score goes down when it falls. So let's see. I'm going to go on to game screens now. So I'm going to make another variable and I'm going to call it game screen. And I'm going to make that equal, in quotation marks, home. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if, and then in parentheses, game screen equals, 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 in quotation marks, home. Oops, no space. Then this is what I want to happen. So I could just say like background 0, for example. And then I want everything below that to be true if game screen equals, 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 play. And I'm going to put all of that into curly brackets. And a really good way to check your curly brackets, if maybe you haven't been in class before or if you just haven't done this before, you can press this little triangle on the side, and if it packs everything up into this nice little box, then you have all of your curly brackets right. It's really easy to do that for each one of them, and it's kind of nice. I'll probably do my code for if game screen equals, equals, equals home in a closed with game screen equals, equals, equals play closed, because it's just easier. It looks a little bit nicer on the screen. It's not as confusing for you guys. So all of your game code should go inside of if game screen equals, equals, equals play, and then curly bracket, all your game code, and then closing curly bracket. So using game screens like this is a really good way to think about conditional statements. So you're telling it if something is true, then you want something to happen. I like to think of it like going into different rooms in a house. Like you're basically saying like, if I open the bedroom door, then I'm in the bedroom. Or if I open my front door, then I'm in my house, you know, walking into different rooms. And from the different rooms, you can get into different rooms in your house. That might be a little confusing, but it's a good way to think about it. Okay. So, I'm going to give you guys just like a couple more minutes to catch up. Let me know if you need me to go slower or faster. This next part is going to be a little bit easier. We're just going to talk about designing a home screen, which is super easy, right? So I'm going to add back in a text font because it won't apply to my home screen unless I tell it to. So I'm going to use the same one I used before. I'm just going to use a bigger text size, and this is stuff you don't have to do. You don't have to change the font, you don't have to change the size. And I'm just going to add in some text that says apple catcher and put it there. Okay, so I'm going to make my text a little bigger. Ooh, too big. Alright, so here is what we are going to do. We're basically going to let's make 4 levels of the game. Yeah, let's do 4 levels. So we're going to make 4 buttons basically. So we'll have one button that's level 1, one that's level 2, and one that's level 3, and one that's level 4. And what we're going to do for these ones is we are going to use Boolean expressions. And a Boolean expression is just something that says true or false. It has 2 outputs. It's either true or it's false, and there's an output for true, there's an output for false. So what we're going to do is you make them the same way you make a variable. It's the exact same thing, except we're going to set them equal to true or false. So at this point, I want you to make 4 variables, and if you feel like you're falling behind a little bit, that's totally fine. Just make 2. You don't have to do 4. So I'm going to do var, and I'm going to call it level 1, or let's just call it 1, equals false. We want to set all of our booleans, in this case, to false to start. Oops, over. Okay, so you don't have to put it in quotation marks or anything. It should just work, just the word. So I have var 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the next thing that I'm going to do is go underneath where I said apple catcher. And there's a few different ways you could design this. One of the ways that I've designed a game with multiple levels before that I think looks a lot nicer is if you put just 2 rectangles on the screen, like one right here and one right here, and make one of them play from the beginning and one levels, like call it levels, and then when you click on it you can choose what level you want to play at. You have a lot of options here about what you want to call the levels to. You can make them levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. You could make them like beginner, advanced, master, like that kind of level. As we get more advanced, we could talk about how to make it so that after you like complete one level, another level unlocks basically. But I think that for today we're just going to stick with this. So, where I said if game screen equals home, after all my text and all that good stuff, I am going to make 4 rectangles. So I'm going to make one rectangle here. Let's do 50, 20, or 200. Let's see. That is not what I want. Oh, it's rect mode center. Don't forget, it's in rect mode center. So it's easy to forget that. You could reset it to rect mode corner for this, but it's just, it doesn't matter that much. So just get four boxes going. It doesn't really matter what they look like. They don't all have to be the same shape and size. It will be really helpful if they are. So one thing that you can do is copy the line where you made your rectangle 4 times, and then you can just change. For this one, I'm just going to change the x value to 450 instead of 150. Then for this one, I'm going to change the y value. So instead of 200, it's at 300. And then let's do 350. Yeah, that'll work. I'm going to make it a little taller. Okay. And then this last one I want to set to 450, 350. All right. So take a little bit of time. I'm just going to add some design to these. Just make them like kind of rounded, add a fill to them. You do not have to do this. Like I said, if you're kind of falling behind, now's a good time to make up for it and just skip this part. So adding a 5th number at the end of a rectangle gives it a curved corner. So it just looks like a rounded button instead of a square one. Let's see, let's add some colors to our buttons. I'm gonna make them this nice pink color. Oh, and I'm gonna keep my font black, I think. I'm gonna add a stroke weight. I've gotten this question kind of a lot lately. But if you want to make the outside lines heavier on your shapes, you could do stroke, capital W-E-I-G-H-T, stroke weight, and just make it a bigger number, like 10. 10's a little too much, maybe like 5. Yeah. So I'm just modifying this. Like I said, you do not have to do this, but what you do have to do is turn these into buttons, and we're going to start with one. I'm going to show you how to make the button. I'm going to show you how to make the Boolean expression change to true, and I'm going to show you how to make a conditional that's attached to your Boolean. So the first thing we want to do is let's close this out, and we're going to make a new if statement that's outside of the other ones. Let's put it up top. That says if, and then in parentheses, 1 equals true. So if 1 equals true. 3 equal signs anytime it's in the if. So if 1 equals true, then what I want to happen is, let's just say for this case, apple speed equals 3, and maybe I'll just set apple speed up here to 0, because this is just one of the things that I guess I want to control. Another thing that you could change is you could add another apple, you could add I'm trying to think. You can make your basket smaller and your apples smaller. That would make it a harder game. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use these Booleans to help control our speed. So I'm going to say if 1 equals true, then apple speed equals 3. And then what I'm going to do is for each level, I'm going to change it so that the apple speed equals a a faster speed. So, let's see. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go and close this up. Go back down to if game screen equals home. And I'm going to make my first button. And I'm going to make this one for level 1. And actually, let's add some text. Let's add, I need to do it below the rectangles. Okay. So, below the rectangles, add in a fill. And let's add in some text that says level 1. Oh my goodness, cannot type today. Level 1. And you want that to go inside of one of your squares. And it's way too big. Let's do text size. Let's try 25. Alright, so I'm just making sure that this goes right in the middle. Another thing you can skip, you do not have to make sure it's totally in the middle every time. I just really like the way it looks if it's all perfectly lined up. Okay, so there we go. I have my button for level 1. So now I need to make it so that it actually works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if mouse X is greater than the line right here, so let's comment this out for a second. So if my mouse's X is greater than this line right here, which is at 75, and mouse X is less than whatever the far right line is, so in this case it's 225, then I want to make a curly bracket there. Let's just get rid of that. Then I'm going to do mouse Y. So I'm going to say if mouse Y is greater than 150, which is the top line, and mouse Y is less than, I think it was 250. Yeah, so it goes from 150 to 250. Then I'm going to say if my mouse is pressed. So it doesn't count if my mouse is hovering over it. It only counts if it's over it and I actually click the button. So then what I want to happen in here, this is the important part. So I'm going to press the pretty button. Okay, so this is what we're looking at right here. So inside of this condition, I want to say that I want the game screen to equal and then in quotation marks, play. And I also want to make it so that 1 equals true. So there are a lot of different ways to do this. So instead of making a Boolean, I could have just said here apple speed equals 3. That's another way you could have done this. The reason that I'm showing you how to do it with Booleans is because as you get into more complicated levels where maybe you want design changes or you want some of the more complicated variables to change, you are going to have to use the Boolean, so it's just good practice to learn something new and to practice. So let's see, if I click on this now, it is working and my apple speed is equal to 3. Cool. So we're good. So now what we are going to do is finish up our buttons. So if you're still working on your first one, that is totally fine. Keep working on it. I'm just going to move on to my other ones. Level 2. Level 3. How are you guys doing? Let me know in the comments how you're doing. Or in the chat box, I guess. Seems like everyone's doing pretty good though. No one's really asking for help. Let us know if you need help. That's totally fine. That's what we're here for. Oh, maybe I'll just use numbers for these. Yeah, that's better. Just move it over to the right a little bit. All right. Oh, that should be 100. Okay. All right, so now I've got some text in for my levels. So someone said I was going too fast, which is fine. I'm going to go over everything that I just did 3 more times. So hopefully that should be good. So up here we have our Boolean expression. We said var 1 equals false, and then down below we have var 2 equals false. So the next thing that I'm going to do is right underneath this, I'm going to say if 2 equals true, then what I want to happen is I want my apple speed to equal, let's say 6. That's a good one to change it to. Okay, so you're going to want to do this for each one of your Booleans, but I'm just doing it with 2 right now because that is the one that I am using. So I'm just going to completely code this next button. Completely code this next button. Okay, so I'm going to say if mouse x is, and it's going to get mad at me, if mouse x is greater than a certain number, so right here, it's not just a certain number, it's not just a random number, it's 375 right here, and mouse x is less than whatever this number is right here, so it's between 500 and 550, so it is 525. Okay, and then our curly bracket at the end. Okay, so I have my first condition for my button, so make sure that you add in the next one. So it should be 3 all nested together. So if mouse capital Y is greater than give it a second, is greater than 150 and mouse capital Y is less than 250, then what we want to happen actually, we have one more conditional statement that we have to nest. So if mouse is pressed, then what we want to happen is we want our game screen to equal play, and we want 2 to equal true. And we told it earlier, okay, if 2 equals true, which we just made it, if 2 equals true, then apple speed is going to equal 6. So let's give it a try. Let's click on that button, and now our apple speed is at 6, which is pretty fast. I might just go up by 1. So instead of doing 6, maybe I'll make 6 level 4, and I'll make level 2 apple speed equals 4. Okay, so we have 2 of our buttons and 2 of our levels done. And there is another way that you could do this that I'll talk to you guys about right now. So instead of having one game screen for home, or one game screen for play, you could have your game screens be level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. In this case, I wouldn't want to do that because I would just have to copy all of my game code into my if game screen equals level 1. But if you made it a game that was more complicated, or if you made it a game that was maybe each level had a different design or a different goal, or I'm trying to think. Yeah, if you made it so that they were all like different enough, that could be a good way to do it. So I think in this case, just having either the Booleans or having the inside of the buttons, making it so that game screen equals play and then maybe apple speed equals 6, you just put there instead. That could be a good way to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do this. So don't feel like just because I'm showing you this one way to do it means that this is the only way that you could do this. So hopefully you guys are doing pretty good. Alright, so making the working buttons can be the hardest part of this. It is a lot of code to type. One hint that I would give you guys is to copy and paste. So take advantage of the fact that you can copy and paste on the screen. Hold on one second. Gotta get everything up. Okay, we're good. Oh yeah, like I was saying, copying and pasting and coding will save you a lot of time if you are really careful about what you're typing in and what you're changing. So for example, if I were to copy and paste one of these buttons, I would just have to make sure, like, okay, the X values are the same, but the Y value is different. I have to change the Y value. Or, okay, the game screen is going to be different. I have to change the game screen. Or, I don't want 2 to be true. I want 3 to be true. So you just have to be really careful about it. You can write yourself little notes to remind you, or you can just double check everything. But if you're going to do a lot of copying and pasting, it is really helpful to comment your code. So put the 2 slashes in front of your code and say what it is. That way, when level 2 isn't working, you can say, okay, I know exactly where that is. I just have to go to the line that says level 2 on it. All right. Also, a really good hint that someone brought up in one of my other classes that I hadn't really thought about, it's really helpful if you just do a split screen where half of your screen is YouTube and the other half of your screen is your code naturally. That way you can see what I'm doing on my screen and see what you're doing on your own screen. If you don't have it set up like that, you just have like 2 tabs open, that could be something for you to try. It's really easy to do and it's really helpful. Alright, so I'm just gonna, seems like you guys are doing okay, so I'm just gonna finish mine out. I'm gonna finish my 2 booleans. I'm gonna say if 3 equals true. Oops. Then what I want to happen is I want apple speed to equal 5. Okay. If 4 equals true, then what I would want to happen is have apple speed equal 6. All right. So in this case, I am going to copy and paste, but I'm going to be really careful about it. So I'm going to make sure I paste it in, and I'm going to immediately change it so that the comment says level 3 and level 4 instead of level 1 and level 2. I'm going to change it so instead of 1 equaling true, it is 3 that equals true and 4 that equal true. And I'm going to make sure that I check the x and the y's. So for this one, for number 3, is it if mouse x is greater than 75 and less than 225? Yes. So I just have to change the y. So I just want to make the y if it's greater than 300 and less than 400. Okay, so then the next one, the x values are right, the y values are not. All right, so I'm going to change that. And now I should have a game with 4 working levels that are all a little bit different. So this one is pretty fast. I'm going to clear my canvas. I'm going to go to level 2. Okay. All right. And level 3. So another choice that you guys can do is you can make it so that if your score is greater than a certain number, instead of it automatically going up like we've had it do before, you can set it so that so if score is greater than 5, then you could have a screen pop up that says like, good job, you're on level 2 now. And you have 1 equal false and 2 equals true. So try playing around with that in some different ways. We are at the last half hour of class, which is normally reserved for questions. So ask your questions now. Let us know what you need help with, what was really difficult for you. I'll go back over anything that you guys want help with. Just let us know in the comments. And then if you guys could just take a minute to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, that would be awesome. Oh. guys, just trying to figure this out really quick. Oops. All right. So it looks like there's still some people in here. So just let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if it went really well. Also, submit your projects. The link to share your projects is in the description. If you share them there, I can share them with everybody right now, which is super cool, especially because these videos stay up on our YouTube channel, so anyone can go in, watch this video, and then they would see your project as an example, which would be super awesome, right? So yeah, send those out. I'm going to be checking in the next few minutes or so to see if anybody has submitted their project. Oops. My computer is just not having it today. Oh, goodness. All right, so let us know how you guys are doing. There we go. All right, so it looks like nobody's submitted a project yet, which is totally fine. All right, so it seems like there's not really anybody left in the chat, so if you have questions, you can just leave them as a comment on this video, or I think that the chat might still keep running after the video is done, so you guys can totally do it there. Let us know what your questions are, submit your projects. Even if I didn't get a chance to go over them today, that's totally fine. You guys will still get a chance to submit them and have them be part of one of our online videos. Check out our YouTube channel. It is full of, I think we have like 40 videos now that are all just instructionals for you to learn how to code. It's really great if you have friends who have been wanting to learn how to code. It's a really easy way for them to get coding. So take advantage of that, especially during this week of spring break. If you guys are just looking for something fun to do over your spring break when you don't have any classes, this is a great thing for you to do. So thanks for coming to class today. It's really awesome that you guys were here even during spring break. That means a lot to us. Make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out a lot if you guys do that. So help us out. If you watch any of our other videos, give us a thumbs up. Let us know if you like them or not. And then if you have any special requests, just let us know. All right, thanks you guys.